you cannot lose 4 games where you're up double digits on the road. 3 of those, I think 3 of those 4 were in the fourth quarter, and expect to survive.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of Moving the Goalposts. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. Sorry, drank a lot of coffee. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network at ETB Net across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart and Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. And you can listen to all Empty the Bench shows and this show wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to like and subscribe. And this podcast is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for later in the show to find out more. All right, so finally, Brian Daboll gets fired. Finally this happened. I was surprised it happened in the middle of the season. I was surprised that it happened then. But I was actually, if anything, I'm actually kind of surprised it happened at all. I thought they would end up sticking with Daboll, just like they did after last season. The Giants are, I think that it wasn't that all the games that they lost were necessarily terrible losses by themselves. I don't think losing to the Bears is a terrible loss in and of itself. Losing to the Broncos is not a terrible loss in and of itself. But the way that they lost those games makes those games bad losses, is how I would put it. And I think that firing Brian Daboll in the middle of the season is definitely a very questionable call. However, the season is over anyway. They're 2-8. They're not making a playoff run, so it really doesn't matter that much anyway. I mean, I think the Jets last year when they fired Saleh had a greater shot at making the playoffs than the Giants do now. So the season's over now anyway. And the way I see it is that it really just – it's one thing if you're screwing up your team's chances for this season, but if they look at Brian Daboll and say he's not the guy, he's going to have to go at the end of the season, I can understand why they would be like, yeah, we might as well just do it right now. Like that logic I can definitely understand. And, you know, in fairness to Brian Daboll, he's not the only one who's to blame for everything that's gone wrong with the Giants. A lot of it is Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. A lot of it is Joe Shane, the GM. And a lot of it is also, frankly, just bad luck. That's another thing that just happened, you know. So that's another big problem with the Giants. But overall, I said last season, I was adamant last season that they had to just clean house. And I think if Joe Shane survives this season and Shane Bowen survives this season, that would just be completely unfair to Brian Daboll.
Ooh, you laid a lot on me there.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. There's a lot to take away from this news. 2 months ago when the season started, I thought there would be no shot in the world that we would see a head coach change in season. But when you look at where we are 10 weeks into the year, with the schedule that they had this year, and it's been well documented, this is the toughest schedule that anybody's had in the NFL in 5 years. But when you look at what has transpired this year, it took something like what has happened for this to happen, meaning that the Giants have lost 4 road games where they had a double-digit lead in, most of those in the fourth quarter. And it just felt like, even watching that game Sunday against the Bears, it looked like some players just quit. And unfortunately, that is the ultimate sign of a coach firing, is when you lose the players, that's when you lose the coach.
Just like what happened at Penn State.
I think that's fair. And that loss, the loss that they had, I'm trying to think which one it was, because I mean it's been so bad now. They've lost 6 in a row too. But the loss to UCLA, I think, was the ultimate decline for James Franklin.
Well,
Penn
no.
State.
I would say if anything, it was lost to Oregon, and then after that, they lost to UCLA and to Northwestern. Like two like below average
down effect. Yeah, a trickle down effect. Yeah, that's well said. But I mean, when you lose the way, I mean, you 4 times this year, you hold a double-digit lead on the road, and you don't win one of them. And then you see what's going on with the players. There were some players I don't want to name names here, but there were some players that look like they had no interest in playing. You go out and then you have offensive linemen who are not protecting the quarterback. You have defensive players that cannot tackle Caleb Williams at all. That's where we are right now. Now, that being said, what does this mean going forward? We heard also in these reports that came out this week after Daboll being fired that Joe Schoen seems to be on a little bit safer right now than Daboll, obviously, but he may make it through the end of the year, which makes sense. I mean, at this point, you know what? I'm not ready to say here though that Joe Schoen is a shoo-in for next year. I think they will reassess this at the end of the year. I think Shane Bowen, I agree with you 100%. Shane Bowen is gone. I mean, I think Black Monday, once midnight hits on Monday after week 18, Shane Bowen's gone. There's no way in the world that you could sit here and tell me that he's going to survive this.
Yeah.
But,
because I was listening to FAN this morning, and a lot of people were talking about, well, why is Brian Daboll fired before Shane Bowen? And it's like, well, the answer is pretty obvious. It's because he's the head coach. He's responsible for Shane Bowen. And it's like, what Shane – now, I understand Brian Daboll is not a defensive head coach. He's an offensive head coach. But just like if there's a really bad offensive coordinator, the head coach is still responsible – who's a defensive head coach, for instance, that defensive head coach is still responsible for their offensive coordinator. And – you know, I've never seen coordinators get fired mid-season, or at least not very much. I'm sure it's happened, but I don't really recall coordinators getting fired mid-season. So you're not really going to fire the coordinator before you fire the head coach. So that's not going to happen. And I don't see how anybody can not put any blame on Joe Schoen, because here's the thing. Joe Schoen is not the one who wanted to draft Jackson Dart. That was Brian Daboll's guy. Brian Daboll wanted to draft him. And to be fair, there were some pretty good draft picks that, he wasn't terrible at drafting, I would say. Part of that, Joe Schoen, part of that is because the Giants just constantly have pretty good picks. But you know what? He missed on a lot of these picks. Like, Kayvon Thibodeau's not looking like a great pick. Evan Neal was a terrible pick. And that's obviously going to cost you your job, very likely. Even though at the time they didn't seem like terrible picks, but when you get these picks and these first round picks and they don't work out, that's a lot of that blame is going to be going towards the GM. And one of the things that we're all looking at is everything that happened with Daniel Jones going to the Colts, and he's flourishing and all of that. And you know, I have pointed out before that, look, the Colts are not exactly an organization that is exactly a bastion for quarterbacks. I mean, they haven't really, throughout my life, the Colts have not really been a good destination for quarterbacks. I mean, they had Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck in a span of about 20 years, and they took away one Super Bowl from it. Like, I've never seen a quarterback's career get wasted like Andrew Luck. And frankly, they kind of wasted Peyton Manning's career. They should have been a dynasty with a quarterback like Peyton Manning. And with the Colts, Daniel Jones is flourishing. And ultimately, that has to have a lot to do with the head coach and the GM. It has to do with both. And not just the head coaching. It probably has a lot to do with both. In fact, in my view, I think it probably has more to do with the roster around him than it even does with the head coach. Although Brian Daboll, I think, makes some really boneheaded moves. One of them is... I think I talked about this, but a couple of weeks ago, the last time they played the Eagles, the game was over. There was like 2 minutes left, I think. And, you know, he's having Jackson Dart like run up the middle at the goal line when the game is completely over. Not only, like, first of all, you should take him out. Second of all, if you're going to leave him in, don't have him like risk these huge hits in a game that doesn't even freaking matter. Like, I think Brian Daboll just makes a lot of really bad decisions. And it's weird because he's the same guy who won Coach of the Year just like 3 years ago. And here's the truth. He didn't forget how to coach. He didn't forget how to coach in his last 3 years. It turns out he's not the head coach that he has the reputation for having, for being right now, and he's not the head coach of the year. He's really just somewhere in the middle. That's really what you are. That's really just what you are.
Well, his bold moves, and when he first started a couple of years ago, worked out. Like the first memory that we have with Brian Daboll were in his very first game against the Titans, when Daniel Jones makes a terrible interception throw at the end zone, and Brian Daboll's going out there yelling at him, going all Tom Coughlin, losing his mind. And then also remember at the end of that game where the Giants get a touchdown to cut it to within one, and they go, it was within one, and they go for two. They don't go for the tie, they go for the win, and they convert. Now, obviously, when you convert the things, that makes the decisions a lot better. But there have been a lot of questionable moves. I mean, there were a lot of questionable decisions with how he executed Sunday against the Bears.
Now, I have a question about that. What decisions did he make that were so bad, like that were really so bad against the Bears, in fairness, at least on the offensive side? Like, for instance, like they went up. Is he being criticized? Are people criticizing him for kicking the field goal to go up 20-10?
Well, that was one thing people criticized him for. I wasn't as high on that.
That's a common sense move. Like, I have no issues with him doing
at that time. You take the points. There's no question. And the way that especially when earlier on, when the Giants were going for it on 4th and 2 from midfield, very early on, and they don't convert, and the play calling and the play call that they decide at 4th and 2 looks atrocious. That's been part of it. I think there's something. I felt like early on there was actually, I think, 2 instances where he did that. And it felt like the Giants were chasing points the entire game. So, no, that 4th down where he's kicking the field goal, that's the least of the issues. I mean, I think that's just anti-Giants people that are just trying to get on him for a myriad of things.
Well, imagine if he had gone for it and missed.
Oh, I mean, killing him. Oh, my gosh. Social media, bars, restaurants, households would have absolutely lost
remotes would be thrown. Like,
I mean, if they weren't already, yeah. But it's been a combination of all this. And again, it also just goes back to the point that you can't lose 4 games. I don't care who, what, when, where, why, or how. You cannot lose 4 games where you're up double digits on the road. 3 of those, I think 3 of those 4 were the fourth quarter, and expect to survive. And this is it's literally the only way that we could have seen an in-coach firing this year with the schedule that they've had going into this year. We talked about how the 574 winning percentage, the hardest schedule that anybody's had to face in 5 years. I kept constantly saying, you throw wins and losses out the window this year. They don't mean anything. It's how you play that is the most important thing this year with this team. And that's ultimately what it transpired. And look, I am somebody that wanted to keep Brian Daboll. I thought there should be no way we were even talking. And look, there are media outlets that are out there talking about the fact that Brian Daboll should have been fired earlier this year. Those are media outlets that are anti-Giant if there ever were any. The most realistic thing was with the schedule that they had, the one thing you wanted to see this year was progress from your team, your rookies like Dart, Neighbor, not Neighbor's is not a rookie, but your key guys like Dart, Neighbor, Scadaboo, just have them produce. Now, unfortunately, you've lost 2/3 of that, and we don't know what Jackson Dart's situation is. I mean, this is the real scary thing too that I took out of Sunday's game. This is like the 3rd or 4th time now that we've talked about Dart being in concussion, dealing with a concussion. Now, this one was bad because he ultimately left in the 4th quarter and didn't return. And don't kid yourself, the moment he leaves that field, the whole tenor of the game changed. The whole demeanor of the organization. They looked like they just stopped playing after that. Like they felt like they lost already, and they were up 10 points in the 4th quarter. But the moment he leaves the field and Russell Wilson comes in, the team just looks completely lifeless. And it's on both sides of the ball. It's on offense, it's on defense. For the myriad of times that the Giants had Caleb Williams wrapped up and could not tackle the damn guy, that ultimately is all of this is what ultimately led to Daboll being fired. Now, again, there's a lot more that has to go here. We still have 7 weeks left in the season. We still have to figure out, where the Giants go from here. I think There's no question Shane Bowen's gone. I'm not sold yet that Joe Shane is going to make it. He'll make it through the season, but there's no guarantee that I think he survives the offseason. And that's something to ultimately think about, because are they going to allow Shane to pick the next head coach? That's what we have to. That's what we have to figure out now.
To me, I think that probably is, and also I also just don't even really think that's fair for him to pick the next head coach.
Well, and you don't want him to do that and then ultimately fire the guy.
Right. Well, Shane hired Daboll, right? I'm not mistaken.
They both came together, from Buffalo, yes.
So I just think that's kind of ridiculous, because if that's the case, then you also have to give Brian Daboll a chance with Jackson Dart, if that's your art. Why is he given so much more leeway than Daboll is?
Yeah, I know there are reports saying that Shane has higher with ownership, seems to have better security and has a better safety net than Daboll does. Let's see it happen, though. Let's see what happens as the season goes along. The production from these guys the rest of the season, that's still going to be a thing now. And we sit here right now, we're doing this not knowing if Dart's going to clear the protocol in time to play Sunday against the Packers. And
by the way, what was the hit that put him in concussion protocol? Because there was
he landed he landed with his helmet front side down and had to go into the blue medical tent, and then ultimately left him to go into the locker room. It didn't look like anything major at first,
right?
But when you go back and look at the replay, it was not really. You realize that this was what it was, and this has been a thing. How many times have we seen now Dart having to go into the blue medical tent?
Yeah,
and part of that is because he hasn't learned how to slide, and he did that actually quite well last Sunday. But this is a serious thing now. Now ultimately you shouldn't rush him back. You need to make sure that he's 100%, because this is your future right here. And that's the thing too, is we transitioned to talking about who the next head coach is going to be. The next head coach is in a very, has a very attractive situation coming here now, because he has a pretty solid quarterback from what we've seen. He's got Scatterboo, who was pretty well. You got Malik Neighbors, who can be a number one wide receiver. In all likelihood, the Giants are going to have a top, we can say top 5 pick, possibly, the way things are looking. And in all likelihood, they can go out there and get another wide receiver. I know there's a couple of guys that are being discussed there for wide receiver. So you actually have a very, decent looking, at least offensive side of the ball looking roster going into next year as an attractive piece for the head coaching spot.
They should probably go out and hire Mike McCarthy.
And Nick, I'll say this. I do agree with you. I think the Giants need an experienced coach. No more of this defensive coordinator crap. No more of this, young up and coming guy. I know there's guys like Minter from the Chargers.
I'd rather have an offensive minded head coach with a young quarterback.
Well, that's fair. I think, though, the experience does mean something. Now, there is one name that some accounts are throwing out there, and that's Steve Spagnuolo. I think we have to realize something. I love Spags. He was awesome when he was here. He is literally a Hall of Fame coordinator. That's how great he is. Spagnuolo is not a head coach, so that's out of the realm of possibility. McCarthy's fine. If you wanted to go the coordinator route, do you try and go back to Robert Saleh again? Maybe, but I think
I don't think that's a good idea. Look, I think
I agree with you on that.
I think Robert Saleh gets a bad rap a little bit, because I just think the Jets are just an impossible situation to win with, and people like every head coach can't be the problem. Eventually the common denominator is the Jets. However, I just don't think Robert Saleh would be a good fit for the Giants, because he's a defensive head coach. He's not involved in the offense very much. He wasn't when he was with the Jets. So then it turns into your offensive coordinator is running your offense, and Mike Kafka might not even stick around next, because he's going to be auditioning for another job. He might not even be here next year. He's not going to go back to being an offensive coordinator after being the interim head coach. So I think that I just don't think that's a good idea. I think you're better off at least with an offensive-minded head coach who has experience, like Mike McCarthy.
I agree with you. I think an experienced head coach, and McCarthy's taking now a year off, which we heard was a good possibility of it happening, I'm not against that. I think an experienced guy definitely does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to Jackson Dart, like and same thing with Cam Scadaboo, they have to learn to avoid taking big hits. And one person Jackson Dart can really learn from is Russell Wilson, because he's always been very good at avoiding big hits. Now, in terms of like the collapse in these games, like against the Bears and against Denver, a lot of those collapses seem to have been more defensive than offensive. I mean, I think yesterday they said they gave up like 75 points in the fourth quarter or something like that. It was some crazy number. So
I think they go hand in hand, though.
That's fair.
No, because think about it. If your defense, the defense is out in the field for long periods of time, and then your offense goes out there and does absolutely nothing, goes 3 and out, and then that defense goes right back out in the field.
Fair.
It's not just the defense. I mean, obviously it's the defense that's giving the points, but the offense is not staying out of the field, and that's what I ultimately point to with the game last Sunday. Russell Wilson goes in there for Dart when he gets concussed and does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and a lot of it was,
and then the defense can't get off the field. They can't tackle. Caleb Williams. The defense did everything but tackle the guy and their receivers and their running back in the second half and fourth quarter.
Which is very much a sign of fatigue. And also, it's like it looked like the offensive line forgot how to block when Russell Wilson was in the game. Now, some of it is just a product of Russell Wilson being slower than Jackson Dart, but like, how do you just forget how to block just because a different quarterback is in? Like I didn't get that.
Well, I think it also though speaks to how great Jackson Dart is, how he's able to move around, escape and stuff. I mean, I kept saying even when the Giants were down big in a couple of the games that he was in, even the Eagles game, the 49ers game, and the fact that he was down Neighbors and Scadaboo, the guy had still been making great plays and great moves despite the fact that he was down multiple scores and down multiple players.
Yeah. So,
but the most important thing is he's got to get healthy first before we even talk about it, because I'll be honest with you, and I know this is a very, very big long shot of happening. If he doesn't clear Sunday, I'd be going to Winston Sunday. I think at this point, there's no point in putting Russell Wilson out there. The fan base, whatever fans are going to be there at MetLife Stadium, are going to lose their mind with Russell Wilson being out there on Sunday. But I say that, I know it's a real long shot, but I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose? You're 2-8.
Might as well.
Right now, the rest of the season's a wash right now, because there's nothing that can come out of this season the rest of the way out that's going to change your mind with to talk about the off season. Your quarterback set, your running back hopefully comes back, Neighbors comes back. That part's safe. That does the last 6 games, nothing changes with that.
Yeah.
Hey fans, Novig is here to change the way you play. Available in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York, Novig is America's #1 sports prediction market, and it's 10 times more profitable than traditional sports books because there's no house edge. Instead, you're betting directly against other sports fans just like yourself. Novig is also the only free exchange, which means you keep every dollar you win, whether you're putting plays down on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, college sports, or even UFC and tennis. Novig gives you the power to pick the best odds, or better yet, set your own. Sign up today with the code ETB Network, and you'll get 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash, and special bonus offers like spending $5 and getting $50 back. Novig, where fans play smarter. You must be 21 years or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Moving the Goalposts is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators are going to hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. I do want to talk about the Jets and how we can't stop winning.
What's changed in the last
What's
couple
going
of
on
weeks?
with the Jets? We're like the opposite of Notre Dame. Everything's turning on after Halloween. So the Jets won 2 in a row, and they also won the bye week. I wasn't on the show last week because I was on vacation, so I couldn't react to the Jets free trade deadline moves. I did it. I reacted on leftovers, and I just want to address it because I don't want it's outdated, so I don't want to spend too much time on the Jets trade deadline moves. But they were very, very good moves. They were very good moves. I thought, especially the Sauce Gardner deal, I thought that was a steal for the Jets. Like that deal was a steal. It's not even. I don't even like that deal because the Jets are sellers. If the Jets were playoff contenders, I would like that move. That's how good of a deal it is. Trading Sauce Gardner for 2026 and a 2027 first round pick and Adonai Mitchell is an amazing deal. My only criticism would be of the Colts for actually accepting that deal.
Yeah.
That's how good of a deal it is for the Jets.
Well, yeah, because now and then on the Colts side, real quick, it also pretty much locks them into Daniel Jones being their quarterback because now they don't have, first round pick for 2 straight years. But yeah. I know we saw it in our private chat. Yeah, I totally agree with you on the moves. I mean, what they got for him, and also 2 trades they made where they got a player back and picks.
Yeah.
So it was a player for player and picks.
The Quinnen Williams one too. And by the way, they were probably considering trading Breece Hall, but didn't get a good enough deal. That's what I'm getting.
And remember, the week before, they made the trade with the Eagles where they traded Carter away and got back Mechie, who could be a decent receiver going forward, too. I mean, think about it. They got 2 receivers in a week's time now to back up Garrett Wilson. And now we found out this week that Garrett Wilson's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So
because he has a knee sprain.
Yeah. And so actually, it looks like they actually did pretty well with those 2 moves, even more now because now Wilson's going to be out. And ironically enough, the last 2 games they've scored like crazy. Now, granted, the last week they had a kickoff return and a punt return for a touchdown, which was absolutely wild.
It was so unbelievable because I feel like the Browns are the only team that can hold the opposing quarterback to 54 passing yards and lose the game.
Well, it was crazy, and the reason why and of course, I'm going to take the fantasy angle because that's the one thing I can do in football this year is I can do fantasy great. I can't make picks properly, but I can do I can make fantasy real well. My opponent in one of my leagues had Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, and I'm like, well, wait a second, they have 31 points, and those 2 combined scored 6, and I'm like, okay, what happened here? And I went back and while I was out Sunday at my favorite bar watching the games. I caught highlights of it, and I was like, and I saw that it was a punt, 2 special teams plays, and I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah.
But it's weird though because there's going to be, of course, the Jets, there's going to be the fans' angle. Well, now this is going to hurt their draft stock in what they want to do because ultimately the big question with the Jets is, what do they do for quarterback for the future, But the thing is, right now
that's an issue no matter what, though.
Well, it is, and you're hearing more and more about how 27 is going to be a better draft than 26 is going to be.
We don't know,
but we really don't. I mean, they were talking about all the at the start of the season. You know this because you're just like me. You're a big college guy. Yeah. They were talking about a long list of quarterbacks coming out in 26, and the majority of those quarterbacks, if you watch them this year, you would be really hesitating to pick up any one of them outside of Fernando Mendoza, and that's a real wild card too. In all of the out of all,
they're all wild cards. We don't. Look, none of us really – you can't really – is there any, player – there's no quarterback right now that makes me say, oh, the Jets have to tank for this guy. And even when that does happen, it often doesn't even work out anyway. I remember the Winston Mariota draft was this amazing quarterback-heavy draft. Now, 10 years later, you look back on it, it's it almost doesn't matter.
There's more wide receivers that you would tank for than you would quarterbacks right now. Like Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, absolutely tanked for.
Yeah, That's a great example, Jeremiah Smith. But
and you don't usually tank for a wide receiver, but that's how great I think he's going to be.
But you know what? If your quarterback is Justin Fields and he can only throw for like 54 yards, it doesn't do you that good when you have a whole bunch of great wide receivers.
Well, and that's why I kind of threw out this question multiple facets on social media, on all of our podcast shows here on the ETB network. And the thing that we learned also this week is Kyler Murray. There's report out that he has a $19 million salary that he gets if he's still on the Cardinals roster, I think, after March. And I kind of wonder now, Kyler Murray's name is going to be flipped around here. Do the Jets take a flyer on? I shouldn't say flyer, but do they take a shot on at him, or do you go down that road?
It's not that bad. It's not that bad of a move. I don't think.
If you're not confident with any of the quarterbacks coming out, and also the Jets, the way the Jets are looking right now, I mean, and they could sneak. I mean, the way they're playing, they could still sneak a couple of wins. I actually think, and as this show is going to premiere just as the Thursday night game gets going between the Jets and the Patriots, which I will tell you, I think the Jets keep that game very close.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, what's been a common theme this year? A common theme has been there's been a lot of upsets in rivalry games and on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
Because the short rest and rivalry game combination are two equalizers.
Yeah. And the Pats used a lot of energy in that game last Sunday. I absolutely think it's a very, very close game. And I would even take a couple of dollars and maybe even put it on money line. But
the spread is more than two possessions.
Yeah.
Again, I actually wouldn't be stunned. I mean, it's not as crazy as, say, the Vikings beating the Lions or the Dolphins beating the Bills. I mean, things like that just happen a lot.
This year especially. But that'd be the one thing with the winning that they're doing right now going forward is it may cost them at who they want to have a QB. It's something I've been documenting before. I think it's the biggest problem the Jets have had in the last 15 years is while they've been the worst team in the NFL, they haven't been the worst team in any particular year.
Yeah.
To ultimately get their shot at QB. I mean, that's the thing that having the first overall pick does is gives you every possible angle of it. And think about it now, they have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, so they have 5 shots, but they ultimately want to have the shot at getting it. But we'll see. But yeah, definitely. I mean, look, it's gone. And if you really look at them as a whole, even though they were 0-7 to start the year, it wasn't like they were 0-7. They were losing by 50 points every game. No. They were in a lot of the games.
Although, in fairness, they were in some of the games, like against Tampa Bay, because of special teams flubs from Tampa Bay.
Hey, you know what, though? I mean, that's part of the game, though. I mean,
yeah, no. So, but you are right about that, though. Like, they were in a lot of these games. They weren't getting blown out. But the truth is, that's true about most teams that are bad. Like, most teams that are bad are kind of in games that they end up losing. So, that's also a part of the games. And, figuring out a way to win is a big part of the game. I remember in the Giants-Bears game, the announcer said, and the Bears figure out a way to win. But, I don't know if the Bears figured out a way to win as much as the Giants figured out a way to lose.
Yeah, it's a combination. I think the Bears have actually been doing that a lot. When you look at their recent success, they've been finding ways. I mean, remember the week before was that crazy 47-42 game against the Bengals.
Yeah.
They've eked out some close ones. Remember there was the game winner against the Commanders. So they've been close in a lot of these and had some things to go their way, which, you know what, they take advantage of. I mean, that's part of the game. It's not college where it matters how you win. I think that's the case when you get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you just, you win in advance. That's survive in advance. That's the name of the game in the NFL.
I mean, they won 6 of their last 7, but it doesn't feel like they've won 6 of their last 7.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing because, I mean, the one game they lost in that stretch, they got destroyed against Tyler Huntley.
They got cooked by a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of the reason is just that their schedule outside of the Commanders on the road has been very easy. I mean, it was – the Saints, the Ravens with a backup quarterback, the Bengals, they're okay. The Giants, and then the Giants. Their schedule has been fairly easy. Like they're a 6-3 team, but really I think they're an average team. Like they're 6-3, but they're not a good 6-3.
Fair.
Which at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But I think their schedule is going to be getting tougher. They play the Vikings, who aren't great, but they do play the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Packers. The Steelers at home, but the Eagles and Packers both on the road. So, and then they play the Browns, which is easy, and then they play the Packers again, and then the next 3 in a row are the Packers, Niners, and Lions. There's a really solid chance they lose all 6 of those games.
And where's the game against the Browns? Is that a home game, or they have to travel to Cleveland?
It's a home game.
Okay, different story then. I think they probably have a shot there, because we've seen with the Browns, they're home and away. That defense lights out at home, doesn't travel.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, and the Packers are just, you know what? I think they have a better shot against I think they actually have a fairly good shot at splitting against the Packers.
I think that's possible, yeah.
Because, you know what? I don't know what it is. Like, sometimes the Packers offense, like Jordan Love, he just has some games where he's really just off. And the Packers last year struggled a lot in their division. They struggled a lot. I think they split with the Bears last year, and one of those games was, I think it was the Thanksgiving game, where Caleb Williams didn't even know how much time was left on the clock. So, I mean, the Packers do have that weird tendency where they do have some like oddly perplexing bad games.
It's funny. I think you could say that about every team this year.
That's true.
Every good team even is going to have that one game where you look at it, it's like, how did they lose to this team, or was it very, very close at the end of the day? I think everybody's going to have that.
Well, how did the Eagles and Packers game end up being 10-7? What the hell happened there? It was like I was watching a Big Ten game.
Yeah. Oh, and just think about how Week 10 started with a 10-7 game on Thursday night and ended with a 10-7 game on Monday night.
Yeah, the thing with Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts is that both of them are just so streaky.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree with you on that. And I think, though, the Packers are going to have to find a way now without Tucker Kraft, because Tucker Kraft was their best receiver. They've got options at the receiving side, but they don't have that true number one guy unless, Christian Watson can come back. I mean, he's come back, but if he can elevate to what he was like before his ACL, before his ACL injury, which is going to take time.
Yeah. And the thing is that like everybody was like freaking out about like how the Ravens, they started off the season 1-3 and all that. But, I think the Ravens now with Lamar Jackson back really are contenders. Now, I'm very concerned about their defense. That's obviously an issue. I mean, I will say this. I think the Ravens are one of the more entertaining teams to watch in the NFL. Them and the Bills probably are like the most entertaining because they both have great quarterbacks, but are also just very chaotic, if that makes sense. Like the Bills, like I remember somebody commented, Josh Allen looks like he's pressing, when he plays, it looks like you're pressing all the buttons at the same time when playing Madden. Like that's a great way of putting it. And like the teams around them are not really, like the Ravens, they don't have a good defense. The Bills, frankly, don't have a great defense either. And their quarterbacks are playing hero ball. And a lot of times when the quarterbacks have to play hero ball, that, like in my view, I think that's more entertaining than when you watch a very well-balanced team where the quarterback doesn't have to do everything. When quarterbacks have to do everything, it's so much more fun to watch.
Sure.
If that makes sense. But if you think about it, the Ravens don't really have any like losses that make you say that are like perplexing, like the Lions losing to the Vikings or the Chiefs and losing to the Jaguars. They don't really have anything like that so far.
All legitimate losses on their
all
part.
Legitimate losses.
I think it was just the way that they lost that was like how did it happen? Like the game against the Bills to start the year, and you're up 15 points in the fourth quarter. But every team's going to go through that. I mean, I'm not saying the Jaguars are a great team, but they just gave up 26 unanswered in the fourth quarter. They were up 29-10 and gave up 26 unanswered in the fourth quarter to the Texans.
I've definitely
to a backup quarterback in the Texans, no less.
I've definitely cooled off on. I mean, I've cooled off on that whole division, other than maybe the Colts. I was never high on the Texans. I've been saying it for a year that they're overrated.
If you ever would have thought a game would have ended 10-7, it would have been that Jaguar-Texan game. And here you are. You have the Jaguars down their top two receivers, and their number one guy is a guy they just traded for. And then you have the Texans with their backup quarterback, and they're putting up a combined 65 points. This shows you how we can't figure this league year out.
That has to be, though, the worst beat of all time.
You know what? It
I had the
challenges what the
Jaguars.
Giants did.
I had the Jaguars. I think it was like plus 1.5.
Yeah, the Jags were favored to start the game. It kicked off. They were up. They were a 1.5 favorite. It started with the Texans, but then when Stroud was ruled out, the line flipped.
Okay, well, when I picked the game and I pick them, I think the Texans were favored.
Yeah, I think it depends on what book you were using. The line was back and forth, 1.5 on either side. But
Yeah.
How many times this year have we spoken about the fact that the teams have like a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter and they lose?
Yeah, and I think that's really merely just coincidental. Like that's just first of all all the teams that it's happened to are very characteristic of those teams. Like think about it: the Giants, the Jaguars, the Ravens, like all the teams that it happens to. You're like, oh yeah, that team would do that.
Yeah.
So I think it just says a lot about the teams. I mean, like the Ravens have developed a reputation for blowing fourth quarter leads. So, and I mean, the Giants look, I think it really just says a lot about the teams. I mean, the team that's hardest to figure out is the Dolphins. That team is the hardest to figure out because they do have some wins that their wins and losses both make no sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, their two most recent wins, blowing out the Falcons and blowing out the Bills.
In fairness with the Falcons, Penix didn't play.
Drake London didn't play either. Yeah. So that's a pick I wanted back in the worst way with. But
I mean, by the way, the Falcons are a 3-6 team, and that was their worst roster all year. I don't think that win was so crazy because people are like, "Oh, that win makes no sense." No, it makes no sense because their quarterback and best wide receiver didn't play, and they're a 3-6 team with those guys anyway. So without Penix and with Cousins playing, the Falcons are probably one of the worst teams in the league.
Dolphins, I think, could be one of those teams that do play spoiler the rest of the way out because now when you think about it now, because they didn't make any moves at the deadline, obviously not trading Waddle or anybody like that, so they still pretty much have their big offensive unit there. They will definitely spoil some teams later on as the season.
Oh, by the way, Jaguars, according to my pick'em, they're getting 3.5 against the Chargers.
Only 3.5. Okay.
They're getting 3.5. Love Jacksonville here.
Yeah.
You know what? The Chargers, what has been a common theme with the Chargers? Those 1:00 games on the East Coast, they struggle.
Well, Jim Harbaugh, the funny thing is Jim Harbaugh, that usually doesn't faze him, but I think the thing with the Chargers is now they do that without Joe Alt.
Yeah,
it's a different animal. I agree with you. I actually would lean towards the Jaguars in that game come Sunday.
Yeah, and
hopefully, especially if it stays at 3.5 when we make the pick on this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm really high on the Jaguars there, and like you said, the Dolphins can play spoiler, a little bit like Iowa this year. In college football, like Iowa's good enough to play spoiler, but they're not good enough to like actually make the playoffs. And that's part of the reason why on unnecessary wagers I picked Iowa to cover against USC, because every good team that they play, they turn into a slugfest. They turn into an absolute slugfest. And they always give the good teams a run for their money. I mean, the only team, and USC being favorite, like I like USC. I think USC is potentially a dark horse to make the playoffs, though I don't think they will ultimately. I don't think they're going to beat Oregon. Oregon's a really tough team, and USC has struggled on the road. I mean, they needed a comeback to beat Nebraska. They lost to Illinois. Now, in fairness, it's also a West Coast game, but I just think they've struggled quite a bit. But in college football, now I didn't get a chance to react to the rankings from last week. I didn't even react to the rankings on leftovers.
Well, the first one's always you don't really pay attention to it. It gives you just an idea of what the committee is going to be. And if you were watching the show last Tuesday, the one thing that Reese and the guys said, Booger McFarland and McElroy and Galloway were saying was that this committee is apparently a different committee than years past, in terms of new members.
They change it every couple of years.
Right, and that's what they were saying. And that was the one thing you wanted to see out of the opening rankings were what they value. more than anything else. Now, when we talk about playoff rankings, we could tie in the fact that what happened last week. I think we're only going to see one ACC team that's going to get in there.
Do you think? Look, I don't know if that's such a guarantee. I think it's possible, but I don't know if that's a guarantee. But
and the thing is also what's going to be now. Well, as of right now, what's your non-top Power 4 team that's going to get in, because Memphis lost.
I can't begin to tell you, especially now in the more equalized college football landscape where there's enough good teams. Having a non-Power 4 team this year get into the playoffs, I think it's such a joke, especially when looking at the rankings, there aren't even any non-Power 4 teams in the top 25.
Right, that's why they had to go. They had to go outside the box to get.
Like, why do we have to have
that guy in, that team in?
First, why do we have to have like quotas for conferences and a non-Power 4 team? Like, they should just pick the 12 best teams. Now, I understand they have the automatic bids because there's a lot of politics involved.
Yes,
like the conferences are not going to be happy if they don't get automatic bids. I don't like automatic bids because I think they're just objectively stupid in the sense that, like, it's not a good way to evaluate who the best teams are. We've seen Big 12 and ACC winners that are just not good enough to make the playoffs. And now in terms of like there being automatic bids, this year, whoever wins the Big 12 and the ACC probably is good enough to be a playoff team anyway. But in general, I don't like automatic bids.
I think you're looking at somebody like James Madison right now, the way things are looking, or as maybe that team.
That is like, here's the thing. A lot of people like this because it's like college basketball, but don't fit a college basketball screw into a college football hole.
It's not the same thing.
It's a totally different game. Upsets are so much like if James Madison plays Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, there's a far greater chance James Madison upsets Kentucky than if James Madison plays Ohio State.
You'd be looking at about a 30-point line. It would be ugly. This is what the committee, though, wants. I think they said they might reassess it next year, at the end of this year, because they said last year that they were going to keep the same format for this year's rankings, and maybe they reassess it after this year.
Well, the good news is they did get rid of the automatic seeding.
Yes.
That I really like. I really liked getting rid of the automatic seeding because, that was just such a joke. The automatic seeding. And frankly, I don't really like the 12-team playoff very much. I'm not saying I want it to be a 4-team playoff, but I really don't like the 12-team playoff. I think it's too many teams, and I also think that the committee wasn't able to handle the 12 teams. Like that's the thing. Like, it's a lot harder to justify. The more teams that you have in the playoffs, it tends to be harder to justify who gets in. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it was too big of an increase too quick. That's what it was. You want to go from 4 to 8? Understood. This though, going from 4 to 12, and then the way you go from 4 to 12, it's just too much. Now,
I would be fine with an 8-team playoff. I would be totally fine with that. I also think that like I don't like the 4-team playoff, and I don't like the 12-team playoff. I like something in the middle, which would be like 8 teams. That's what I think would make a lot of sense. And there's been teams that under the 4-team playoff that were good enough to compete against top 4 teams that didn't get a chance to compete because in college, the funny thing is that in professional sports, teams have leeway, much more leeway than in college football. Like college football is the only sport where teams are expected to be perfect. And it's made up of 19 and 20-year-olds mostly. It makes the least amount of sense if you think about it.
Sure. No. And think about it. We almost had a major shakeup with Indiana. And
what was an amazing, like the play of the year, it looked like.
It happened twice in that last drive. It wasn't just the catch in the end zone, but there was another one a couple of plays prior on the same drive that helped him get into that position too. But yeah, that throw from Mendoza, I mean, you could just give him the Heisman based on that throw alone. But we'll see. But yeah, it's shaping up to be something here. I can't believe we only got a few more weeks of this. This season goes by quicker than any other one every year. It's the most exciting because every week is important, and it's not only it's not only you winning, but it's the way you win, and that's why. I mean, we're doing this before they announced the official, the most recent one. But I was saying to Nick D before we started here, I wonder if this committee would flip flop A&M and Indiana. Just on that, I don't think they will, but it's just something to keep an eye on because of that. It's early enough that they could do it, but
now my only criticism,
I think I'm just trying to grasp for straws when saying that.
My only criticism is that they put Indiana ahead of A&M. I think A&M is a better team than Indiana.
Yeah, but you could have also even made the case too that you could have even put one of those two even above Ohio State because Ohio State really hasn't played anybody except Texas to start the year. And if you look at how Indiana's blowing out teams by 50 or A&M's defense and who they've had to play, I don't think it's that.
I don't think that's totally fair because you can only play the teams that are in front of you. And
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. I do wish, though, like with my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, that we would schedule more tougher opponents to make us look even better. But, I mean, look.
But you know what? They did do that this year. They played Miami. Although Miami is not that was not a scheduled team because of their contract with their deal with the ACC, but they did play Texas A&M, and they did play USC,
and we've got Pittsburgh Saturday, and Pittsburgh's a top 25 team now.
Yeah, Pitt is really just nothing to sneeze at. Now, do you think? What if you have a 2-loss Notre? Because the thing is, the reason these rankings matter. Now, my criticism of these rankings is, I think USC is ranked too low. They are better than the 19th best team. Vanderbilt is ranked too high. I don't think Vanderbilt – I mean, Vanderbilt is not a better team than USC. If USC played Vanderbilt in Vanderbilt, USC would be favored.
Yeah.
So I don't really like that one at all. I don't really like the Vanderbilt one. I think Virginia is probably ranked a little too high. And – Miami, I guess you can argue. I don't know. I don't think Miami's ranked too low necessarily because if you look at all the other teams, but I do think Vanderbilt is definitely ranked a little too high.
I think that's fair. I can't argue with you on that.
And, Oklahoma, I would have said is ranked too high, but they do have that good road win against Tennessee, so that's not too bad. I think Texas is ranked perfectly fine. I think they're perfect where they are. And I think Notre Dame is perfect where they are. If anything, you can argue they're ranked a little too low, if anything.
I think where they are is right, and I say that
I
say that as a Notre Dame fan. I think where they are is right.
Right. I think where they are is totally fair because BYU is at least undefeated. Texas Tech is undefeated, but their one loss was in a game where their quarterback was hurt. So
we'll have a shakeup this week because big games this weekend.
Yeah, Texas is playing Georgia. That is going to be interesting, and
that's going to be a fascinating one.
Because the thing is that like people we're talking about how Texas was struggling, and I think some of it was a little bit of an illusion because before they played Vanderbilt, they weren't playing any home games in the SEC. And what has been a common theme. Because before they played Vanderbilt, the last time they played a home game was against Sam Houston. And what has been a common theme in the SEC this year? Oh, everybody's struggling on the road against inferior opponents. The only team that kind of hasn't quite as much is A&M. The only game that was kind of close was against Arkansas, but that was like a garbage time touchdown at the very end. It was a backdoor cover.
Yeah.
And so – that's just been a common theme in the SEC. So I think Texas is not necessarily as bad as you think they are. And losing to Florida, I don't even really think is that bad of a loss because Florida is just this dangerous team. They're way more dangerous than you think they are. Florida's the hypothetical SEC team. They're the team that is like when people talk about teams that are not in the SEC and how they'd get hammered if they played in the SEC, that's what Florida is every year.
Yeah. So Georgia currently 6.5-point favorite over Texas. And the other big game this weekend, Alabama 6.5-point favorite at home against Oklahoma.
Love Alabama here.
Yeah. I said on the show last week that now, unfortunately, I said this, and the way that the brackets are right now, this can't happen. But I still think Ohio State and Alabama is my pick to be in the national championship.
Yeah, that's going to be. I could totally see that happening. I mean, it almost reminds me of the teams from 10 years ago a little bit.
I just think the way that Alabama's playing right now with their schedule, and Alabama's doing this with a very tough schedule. Schedule that they're not used to playing, but Ty Simpson is playing unbelievable this year.
Yeah.
Much more so than I ever would have thought in my wildest dreams that he would have played.
Yeah, it makes me. And by the way, another team I want to talk about is Miami. I am never trusting a Mario Cristobal Miami team ever again. I mean, this was the year everybody was so big on them. They looked like one of the best teams in the country. And then they end up losing to Louisville and SMU. They turn into a pumpkin like every year. I mean, the same thing happened last year too. It was very, very similar, except it happened maybe a little earlier.
Death, taxes, and a Miami collapse. I mean, it's a given every year. And that's why at the end of this year, I think we're looking at at least three more coaches getting bought out, and three more notable coaches: Dabo, Mario Cristobal, and Shane Beamer in South Carolina.
Yeah,
especially with South Carolina firing their OC too. I think that.
You're missing another big one.
What? Who else?
Luke Fickell.
Yeah, possible. Yep.
I mean, I know they just got that win against Washington, but I mean, Wisconsin is so bad, and this is a team where it's like, they've been good in my lifetime. Like, I've seen, they've never been the best in the Big Ten, but they've been up there, Wisconsin. Like, there have been times when Wisconsin was not, they weren't, I mean, there have been times when Wisconsin was a better team than Michigan was, and they ran the Big Ten West. This shakeup in coaching is fascinating. And college football coaching fascinates me in a lot of ways, because of the dichotomy that you see between different programs. Like, there are some programs that have just super high expectations, especially in the SEC, LSU, Auburn, Florida. Maybe not so much Florida because they're constantly mediocre, but like, you look at a team like LSU and you look at a team like Auburn, and they don't give their head coaches any leeway. Like, they almost have unreasonable standards for their head coaches. But you also have programs like Iowa and Kentucky that are just satisfied with eternal mediocrity.
That is well said.
Like Kirk Ferentz can win 7 games every year, and he doesn't have to worry about a thing.
You know, we talk about how they're like system quarterbacks. They seem to be like system coaches in terms of college. And Luke Fickell could have been one of those too. I mean, the success that he had at Cincinnati, they thought maybe could have translated elsewhere. And look what's happened there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what's so that's just what's so funny to me.
That's what was crazy, that people were talking about Kirk Cignetti possibly going to like Penn State or something right after Franklin got fired, but Indiana locked him up. And I think, there's another perfect example of a head coach with a great system that he's product of the great system.
I will give Kurt Cignetti deserves a lot of credit because he created the system.
Yeah. That's fair.
He totally created the system because Indiana was not good before Kurt Cignetti. In my lifetime, they were never good. At least maybe I'm misremembering. I don't remember there being a year when they were anything close to as good as they were under Kurt Cignetti, and that was all him.
They weren't even known for football.
Yeah, they're not even a football
in
school.
Basketball and anything else. Yeah,
they're not even a football school. And Nebraska locked down Matt Rule. Now, I think Matt Rule would be crazy to not take the Penn State job because Penn State is a much better job than Nebraska, and Nebraska is like, I've said this on a previous show, they're like the Florida of the Big Ten. Like, they can never really get their head coaching right, and every head coach just goes there and just they never succeed. They're like that spot in a strip mall that has a new store there every 6 months, and everybody goes out of business. That's what it's like for Nebraska and Florida too.
If I was going to say, if they were only good a short time of the year, I could have said they were the Spirit Halloween store or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, Nebraska, they have standards. Like, they're in a weird position. Like, they haven't won since the year I was born, and that was also split with Michigan. So I don't even know if that even counts. But they haven't won a national championship since the 90s. But because they're Nebraska, they have like these high expectations. And by the way, I do want to point out, Brian Kelly, he's actually suing LSU because LSU wants to fire him for a cause, which I actually agree with Brian Kelly on this. They fired him because he wasn't a good head coach. They didn't fire him because he broke any rules. I thought that was a little weird. But I think a really good example, actually, of the differences in how programs, the expectations that head coaches have at different programs is Brian Kelly. Because he was the head coach at Notre Dame since 2010. And he was the head coach at LSU he was the head coach at Notre Dame for, I think, for 12 full seasons. 12 seasons. He was the head coach at LSU for not even 4 seasons. And he was scrutinized infinitely more at LSU than at Notre Dame. And basically his tenure at LSU was almost identical to his tenure at Notre Dame.
Yeah. Notre Dame 11, 12 years, and then LSU for 4.
So I think that, look, it was just a dumb hire, honestly. Like, this AD this AD for LSU is the same guy who was the AD at A&M who hired Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, and we all know how that turned
out.
Those
are two of the worst big splash hires I've seen.
Yeah, for sure. Notre Dame's benefit, even though it took him a couple of years. Oh, and by the way, real quick, I forgot to tell you this at the Open too. There were rumblings about Marcus Freeman possibly jumping and going to the NFL. I think that would be a massive mistake. Freeman's even said too, because there were rumors about this last year too, and Freeman said that he wants to stay in Notre Dame. So I hope that's the case, because he's definitely built a program there. I mean, it obviously just started out a bit rough, and it's had its rough moments. But I mean, what he's done. Look, there's not many guys could take a loss against Northern Illinois and still parlay it into a national championship appearance. So, got to be fair about that.
Yeah, I think Marcus Freeman's a tremendous college coach, but I think he'd be crazy to take the job. Liam, when we were doing unnecessary wagers yesterday, he threw out a name for the Giants.
Right.
John Gruden.
The whole Ole Miss connection. I think that's certainly in the works. I wouldn't mind that. But again, experienced coach would definitely. Yeah. I would definitely welcome that.
Yeah, I don't think that would be such a bad.
But there were these guys, including some giant beat reporters, that were throwing out Marcus Freeman too, and I'm like, guys, got to be cool. Guys,
I think these are so erroneous. They throw shit at the wall, see what sticks.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to sound something. It's gonna be 7 weeks of this stuff, but we'll find out here. College stuff. I can't believe we've got a month left in the college season. You realize that the first round starts December 19th. I mean, we're like a month away from that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're also already hearing Christmas music on the radio. It's not even
Thanksgiving. I have not yet. So far,
I've heard Christmas music. Well, actually, not so much on the radio. But you do see some like holiday commercials.
That I've started to see, but so far, no Christmas music yet, either in the car or at my stores at my job yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best. I would say maybe the second best time of year for sports, behind October. With all of the when you get the whole when you get all 5
equinox,
the equinox, which I will say I think is a little, as a sports fan, I think is a little overhyped, because I mean, it's a cool thing, but you're not like watching everything that's going on. Like, at some point, it's like with playoff baseball, college football, and NFL, I'm just like, yeah, the NBA's on. I don't really care that much.
It would depend if all 4 of the major sports were on the same day and they all were nationally televised somewhere that you could get to it instead of it being localized. That would help it too.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, one question. I do have a question. Fantasy football question. Is this a fair trade? I'm looking to do this.
Okay.
I'm looking to trade Travion Henderson and Xavier Worthy for Achane.
Oh, wow. That would if you came up to me with that trade and I had Achane, is that like, let's say I had Achane and you gave me those 2, I'd say no. Achane. Okay. I love Achane. I mean, he'll give you something, but
I think I would too.
Henderson outside of recently has not done much. Worthy's been solid, but Achane is so good. That's the one thing he has been he really is the Miami offense. So
yeah,
that's the one thing. I mean, it would depend if I had other running backs on my team. I mean, I'm good for hitting diamonds in the rough. Like I picked up Daboll the moment that it was that he was going to start, and obviously you see where that's transpired. But yeah, I would, if I had HN, I would say no deal.
All right.
But I mean, if you can pull that off, do it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. We'll be back next week. See you guys then.
We'll see ya.